There are dozens of people now here on the streets of Punta Gorda protesting the city's new sign ordinance that bans profanity in public, and my photographer is doing a very good job of blurring the background right now.
Not only can you see the bottom of the canal, you can stand on it. That's where I am right now, standing in the canal on a piece of land that used to be covered by water. We wanted to show you a little bit of the waves as you're rolling in. This gives you a pretty good perspective. We're getting much higher waves than we usually do here on Fort Myers Beach. I was just down here for the 4th of July, and I can tell you the ocean didn't look like that.
The main concern is that small spot fires like this one continue to burn all across Golden Gate Estates this evening.
We're following some developing news out of Washington, D.C. this evening. A shooting has been reported outside of Nationals Park, where the Nationals were hosting the San Diego Padres.
The patient ran down this road you see here, and then if you follow me, he came through the fence here at Fort Myers High School, and he was able to actually find an unlocked door. We've been told by a neighbor that the mother actually pushed her 13-year-old daughter out one of the windows you see here.
Ashley Leathers tells us her father, Ken, has been under that guardianship for 20 years, and she's worried he may never get back control of his life ever again.
We're talking about 50 or 60 dead fish just right here in Big Hickory Island Preserve along the shoreline. Well, as you can see, that boat is still stuck here on the Matlacha Pass Bridge right now. Several fire departments and emergency responders have shown up.
This right here is an awning that they say was attached to the side of their house and was blown off by the high winds during that storm. Tonight, there are now 2 streets in Fort Myers named after NFL players who grew up right here. Sammy and Jalen Watkins were in town today to celebrate the big reveal.
Early this morning, deputies showed up on the property and told people they had until 5 p.m. tonight to get off of the premises. And as you can see, there are still several people here after 5 because a lot of them told me they don't really know where they could go. Horns and cheers filled downtown Fort Myers Tuesday night. Organizer Elizabeth Pedregal calls it the beginning of the end for the Cuban government.
This revolution is the first in over 62 years. So it's really crucial because the Cuban people have stayed silent for so long.
The protesters are joining their families and friends back in Cuba. Protests there have often turned violent.
Our families are sending us these videos and these pictures because they're scared.
Libertad! Libertad! The protesters chanted for libertad, liberty for the people who they say are going without food and medicine. And a slogan you see on a lot of the protesters' signs is Patria y Vida. It means homeland and life. It's a contrast to the Cuban government slogan Patria o Muerte, homeland or death. These people tell me they've seen too many of their people die.
They are the ones dying, but we need to fight. We need to let everyone know what is happening.
Pedregal says the economic and health impacts of COVID-19 sparked the protest, but it only revealed a larger problem.
It's not about the COVID test. It's not about the vaccine. It's not about the embargo. It's about the regime.
A regime these protesters are calling on President Biden to confront.
You wanted to be the president of the United States, right? You know what? Now's your time to shine.
All that Angela Fagg has left of her grandmother can now fit on her kitchen table.
I feel like it's all my fault. I honestly do feel like it's all my fault. Because I wasn't smart enough to be able to protect my grandma.
Fagg's grandma, Clara Apsaloff, had Alzheimer's. She was declared infirm, and although Fagg tried to become her legal guardian in court, she didn't have a lawyer. The judge assigned her grandmother a professional guardian instead.
We're in the courtroom, and we're walking out, and my grandma is kind of happy, and I'm like, Grandma, it's okay, you know. She goes, okay, and I get to go home with you now. Is that what's happening? And I said, no, Grandma, you don't get to go home with me. You're going back to the facility. I'm not in charge of you anymore.
Yes, Grandma.
Fagg says as soon as the guardian had control, things got worse. The doctors stopped talking to her. The nurses wouldn't allow her to take her grandmother out of the nursing home. Then came the real shock.
I was told she was running out of money. My grandmother shouldn't have been running out of money.
Fagg's grandmother was living here at the Palms Senior Living Community in Fort Myers until she stopped paying rent. And the Palms thinks that wasn't her fault, it was her guardian's. According to this lawsuit, filed by the Palms back in October, the Palms believes the guardian made up the company she said she worked for and mismanaged Apsaloff's finances to the point she owed the Palms more than $25,000.
She was evicted at 99 years old.
Now, a bill in the legislature, sponsored by State Senator Kathleen Pasadomo, is trying to keep this from happening to anyone else.
The bill prohibits a guardian from petitioning for their own appointment unless they're a relative, because we have heard of cases where professional guardians have basically trolled nursing homes and looked for victims.
Last week was Apsilov's funeral. FAG was only notified an hour after she died and didn't even get to plan the ceremony.
I just don't understand how somebody can take something so precious, so it's the end of our life. It's the families that get to do these things. It's not some stranger.
In Fort Myers, Rob Manch, Fox 4, in your corner. When you think of a beekeeping operation, you might not expect to find it in a quiet neighborhood like this one. But Julie Cook tells us her neighbor, Daniel Herrera, has expanded his hobby to the point she's actually worried about her and her fiance's safety. This is video Cook's fiance took of the bees flying around their property.
It's hard. It's your dream home. And you can't go out in your yard.
Cook says her fiancé is deathly allergic to the insects, and other neighbors are starting to get concerned as well. We spoke with one woman who did not want to be identified.
I think that bees are very important for our earth. I just don't think that someone should have to mow the yard with an epidural pen in their pocket.
The man raising the bees is Daniel Herrera.
These are all your guards.
When we went to speak with him, he was happy to give us a tour.
My laboratory is here, and then this is where I study my bees, behaviorisms, patterns, flight patterns.
And Herrera says he's got a permit for everything he's doing.
You're allowed to have up to 5 hives. So, there's room to grow.
We checked with the city of Cape Coral, and sure enough, the city responded saying, quote, a code officer verified the property owner's state certification.
Anybody moving to Florida, before you just move in and decide that the bees are, violating your space, you should probably do diligence on the state of Florida, the agricultural laws.
Cook says since she's already made the decision to spend her retirement money on this home, she's hoping they can find a solution.
There's a place to do hobbyists and to rescue bees. Take them where someplace that's not a neighborhood is all we're asking.
And Cook tells me the city told her the only way she can get her dispute with Herrera resolved legally would be to take him to civil court, something she says she doesn't have the money to do. Now, I did some digging and I found out the only time keeping bees on private property is banned here in Florida is if you live in a deed-restricted community that forbids it. In Cape Coral, Rob Manch, Fox 4.